we're not on the same page.
I know where this is going.
We're not on the same page at all. And I'm really sick of this because you're making me like second guess anything that I say. And then I would just shut down in the meeting and I would just stop talking.
Just to clarify that a little bit, are you saying that, sometimes we both get in each other's lanes?
Once again, we got to go home together. So, by the way, what are we having for dinner tonight?
When you're in the office, it's not like you want to be airing out all the dirty laundry, especially when people are watching, because they're always watching.
Or hearing, even if the door is closed, the walls are not that thick.
The important thing to remember is that we are working together as partners. And if we're not being able to have those conversations, then I don't think that we're really doing the business. Welcome back to the show. And once again, I have my co-host, Joanna Ernst, the love of my life, my business partner.
Your wife.
And my wife. Thanks for reminding this. So today we're going to talk about, are you afraid to tell your spouse the truth and be honest with them because they're your business partner?
Yeah, I know. It's a sticky road. Very, very sticky road.
So are you saying that sometimes you don't want to tell me the truth?
Yeah.
You don't want to hear my crap?
Well, yeah. If I see you doing something in the office or like the way you're managing something and I'm like, really? Come on. But then I also have to think about, am I being overly critical because I know you? I have that open door to do that because you're my husband.
Well,
so it's like you.
Of course, you know me.
Well, I know.
I mean,
and that's like I really know you.
I get that.
Yeah.
All right.
So
in all seriousness,
seriously though.
So basically, what you're saying is that. Yeah, but sometimes you hold back.
I do.
You don't always tell me.
No, I
don't. You don't always tell me what's going on.
That's what I'm saying. That's the sticky situation. Is that like, do I really like want to talk to you about this, or is this like a one-time deal, or is this like something that like I've been seeing like over and over again? And do I really need to like bring this up to you? And like, are you going to get defensive about it? And like, you're going to tell me like, well, I'm doing this for a reason. And I'm like, well, okay, I know that, but like, is this reason like legit? So.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that I, have gotten some insight.
And it's not about you too. I know it's about me too.
How your like mind, calculates on every single thing that I'm doing that you could potentially criticize me on. But now that I know you hold back so much, I mean, to tell you the truth,
yes,
I hold back a lot too.
You know, yeah.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. And that's not a tit for tat kind of
yeah,
thing.
sounds like it. Sure does.
Well, you know what? Yes, you are so perfect.
I know.
You do everything amazing.
I do not claim to be perfect.
That's really good.
No.
So no, but I think this really happens. This is a really good subject matter.
It is.
I think it is.
I think a lot of people, have this issue. Like, when is a good time to talk to your spouse and be truthful and honest about how they're managing certain areas in the business? And how do you approach that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm always open to our policy. You know me, like I'm never really like, sensitive to like, your criticism, right? We all know that's baloney.
Yeah, that's completely crap.
Well, you're a little the same way.
Yeah.
So I think,
okay.
I think to be fair, and I think what we're really saying is that, yeah, there is that fine line in communication.
It really is.
That can also hinder it. So, I mean, it can really go both ways. So, I mean, let's just kind of put it out there. I mean, if you're normally giving constructive criticism to another team member or somebody in your department, that's not really hard to do.
No, it really isn't, because you're in a professional setting. If you might be doing like an evaluation, like an employee evaluation, like on a biannual basis or whatever you call it, like, yeah, I mean, that's something that you can have guidelines and, boundaries and in figuring out like how evaluated what they are doing over a certain amount of time. Talk to them about that, give them goals, figure that out. And it's not just like off the cuff and, like, oh, hey, by the way, what you did today was, you don't have that open door like as if you and I do. So like, that's like where the difference is like, you have that open door policy to,
Well, you have the open door policy, but I think what we're really saying in this case is that, hey, it's easier to sit down, give constructive criticism to say, one of your teammates or, somebody on your team.
Yep.
And you're advising them, but sometimes you might hold back because it's me.
Yep. exactly.
And vice versa.
Vice versa. Yeah, it is. Because once again, like we got to go home together.
So are you
feel like
saying
I can be like, you really suck at this. So by the way, what are we having for dinner tonight?
You know what? I think there might be a time that I kind of recall you saying those exact words to me. I mean, I don't know. You kind of like that just rolled off your tongue. Is there something that you want to say to me right now about what I'm doing that's not so great that maybe I suck at right now? So
really,
no, I think that's fair.
it is. That's the part that's the sticky part about it, is that like we got to go home. Like
no, yeah. it is. But really, what you're saying is that, you know, ultimately, there's an oversensitivity.
Yes, there is. There's a definitely like there's an oversensitivity to that. So, you know, once again, like we have to, you know, make sure that like we're not being overly critical and we're not being nitpicky, and also opening up that conversation in a time that like we're both being like in that mindset. Me not just like, you know, I'm like grilling up a chicken at home and being like, oh, hey, by the way, today what you did at the office like really sucks. Like, you know, like it's not going to happen right then and there. Like that completely throws you off. So like, no, like that's like where you have that experience and like back knowledge of like, no, I probably shouldn't bring that up right now. That's more of like a conversation.
Well, but that's if you even bring it up at all. I mean,
true.
I think a lot of what we're saying here.
Yeah, it is.
And there
like, you don't want to. Yeah, well, that's my.
A lot of times that I think I don't want to necessarily speak for you, but I'll just say that I've seen it where people don't bring criticism, myself included. I've had a lot of conversations, you know, with other friends and peers that have their own businesses with their wives, and I'll say that, you know, they hold back a lot, or they're having this conversation where we're just talking about like, man, how's this really going to end up if, you know, I'm going in to criticize or point out things that aren't really being handled well, and really finding the right time or the words. But
yeah, it is. You just don't. It is. It's easier to just like sweep it under the rug, right? And
we're on the same page. We can agree on that, right?
It is. It's true.
So
that's why I was saying, like when I'm like at home and like there is something I want to bring up, like no, I'm not going to bring it up to you. Like there's just.
Well, but I'm talking about in the business.
Yeah.
I'm talking about in the business in the office. Related. I'm not talking about bringing it home.
Yeah.
I'm talking about really looking at, you know, what is going on, what's happening, and if there's something hindering growth.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of times that
it can just get swept
swept under the rug, and you just kind of allow it to go on.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to have to deal with whatever that conversation is bring.
Yeah. So I think the other thing too is that we really just have to understand is like defining our roles in the business.
Sure.
You know, really trying to understand like what is your role, what is my role, you know, what are your responsibilities within those roles, and so on and so forth. So you have to figure out each other's business, and at the same time you don't want to like overstep it and like blow it up at the same time.
Just to clarify that a little bit. So basically, are you saying that, you know, sometimes maybe, you know, we both get in each other's lanes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you know?
that can happen.
Yeah. So
because you might be coming to me and you may or may not be wanting to talk to me about it because you might feel like it's overstepping. So you kind of have to tread lightly and see like, well, is that something I really need to talk with her about?
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of times in this scenario that there's like really no balance. It's either like really good or really bad. So the criticism either is, you know, taken well, or you don't even, you know, talk about it, or it gets taken very bad, right? So there's like in between, like there's no balance to it. And a lot of it now becomes this uncomfortable situation. And, you know, a lot of it too, when you're in the office, it's not like you want to be airing out all the dirty laundry. Especially when people are watching, because they're always watching.
Or hearing, even if the door is closed, the walls are not that thick. So.
But I think the important thing to remember is that, you know, we are working together as partners. And if we're not, you know, being able to have those conversations, then I don't think that we're really doing the business justice or one another. So how does some of the things that I think some of the ways that you and I have kind of dealt with this is that we have to be kind of in that right space.
Yeah, and we have to be like, we did define a time, have to be mature about it. I think you've done it really well where you kind of like set it up and go like, hey, there's something I need to talk to you about. And we really need to discuss this, something that has really been on my mind lately. And when you come to me like, and you kind of preface that first, then I go, oh, okay, this obviously is like something that like he's been like mulling over for a little bit. And like he is coming to me like in not like a guns a-blazing, like where you're just like going in on something. It's like, no, this is like something that like I really like seeing. Like this is something that like I think we need to work on. And it's like same thing that like I came to you not too recently about like how I was feeling when we were meeting with vendors and doing Zoom meetings or just being like at a table with a vendor and, we're not on the same page. We're not on the same page at all. And I think we really did get down and nip it in the butt here just recently where I would be talking in the meeting and you would tap me, and I'm like, why?
It was more subtle than that, right? It was like a little bit
like
of a subtle
it was more like a little tap on the knee, and I'd be talking about something, and then like you're making me second guess about what I'm talking about. Like, whoa, am I not supposed to be bringing this up? Like, or like, is this not a question that's relevant? Am I throwing like the group off? So, and it's more of like what we have figured out because I came to you like in frustration, going like, why are you doing this? I feel like you're over criticizing me. Like once again, it's like. You were like obviously like going back to the title of the show, like you obviously were like maybe just like a little afraid to tell me like why you kept doing this to me. And like it was more of just like a better just to like tap and then like make me like, I don't know what you were trying to do. But needless to say, I came to you and was like, hey, like this is really bothering me.
I was trying to signal you.
Yeah,
I was
you
trying
do.
to signal you like quietly.
Yeah.
And
like the signal to me was like, yeah. So I came to you and was like, hey, I've noticed this. This has like been a prolonged issue for a while now. And I'm really sick of this because you're making me like second guess like anything that I say. And then I would just shut down in the meeting and I would just stop talking. So because I just don't know like what you're thinking. So what we both came to the conclusion of here just recently.
Well, to be fair, let me kind of dive down a little bit into this because I think this is really good for people to hear.
Yeah.
And it was a case. And a lot of times what happened is usually when we get to the point of these meetings, right? I've had either a previous meeting or a previous couple of meetings, and there was a lot of information that was already discussed.
That I wasn't there for.
And that you weren't privy to. And because that wasn't well communicated, so I can own that.
Yeah.
Then you were asking a lot of those same questions, and then you're having these like people on the other side of the table are like,
we already discussed this.
Talking about this.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of something that I visualized how the meeting goes and the information. And we only have a limited time.
We do, yeah.
And that
especially on a Zoom meeting.
So no, but I think that was one of those areas
that we like really figured it out where we just said, hey, we're going to have a little powwow session 3 to 5 minutes beforehand. I'm going to tell you, hey, in this meeting, Charles, I want to ask these questions or like, hey, I want to like drill down like this like expectation that I want out of this meeting. And as well as you coming to me saying, well, I expect this information to be coming out and I want to get this information out of this.
Well, and you know what's funny about what we're just talking about? I mean, you would think that this would be kind of an obvious thing. If you were with anyone else in your department, you would either have them involved in the initial meetings, right?
Yeah.
Or you'd be having a huddle meeting, a preliminary meeting to talk about what was going to happen. But I think because of the whole spouse situation, right? Because you're my wife, I'm your husband, there's this natural assumption that you can just read my mind.
Well, yeah. Yeah. And then sometimes when I wasn't part of those meetings is because I was passing like the ball to you saying, hey, you take that meeting today, like divide and conquer. I'm going to go take care of this. You meet with that vendor, you talk to them. And then like, yeah, we go into the second meeting and then I just happened to be available for that meeting and we didn't take the time to like debrief on the last one. So, yeah.
So it's interesting because I think a lot of times people just assume that if you're running a business together, if you're married and you do all this life together and you do business together, that you're always on the same page, and that's not necessarily
true.
No. And I don't think that's very realistic for anybody to assume. And I think even for us, we've come to the conclusion that we've had to work at this. We've had to learn how to communicate.
Yep.
And that has been the reason why we've continued to be able to grow this business together.
Yeah.
Is because we've had to continually overcome some of these issues, but it's not always perfect. And I don't think anybody should always think that these things always get resolved relatively easy, but they do get resolved if you're able to communicate in those lines. But there's been a lot of times in the past, I can openly admit that I might not be as forthright and willing to like put it all on the table and go, hey, this is, and then if I finally get to that point, you know, it's over the top.
Yeah.
Right. And then you're upset. I'm upset. Everybody's upset.
Yeah.
Everything just kind of goes all that rounded. And really, it all could have been avoided because it really is inefficient. And it's just not a really good way to run through these things. But I think there is a dynamic that you don't normally have, being married, being in business together, being business partners, and making sure that, you know,
have to
have a good understanding to just navigate through that and give yourself a break.
Yeah, give yourself some grace. Yeah, it's one thing too. It's like just give each other grace at the end of the day. Like when these things like come up, it's all like, it's not going to be perfect, but like we just give each other grace at the end of the day that like, hey, like you tried your best, I tried my best, and we're going to continue on this journey. It's not a race, it's a journey, and it's a wonderful journey. I would not want to like be anywhere else besides with you doing this. So, and it's been awesome.
It is wonderful, but and I think there's a lot of times too, I mean, we have some disagreements.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, disagreements definitely come up, and I think those disagreements rear its ugly head because we didn't tell each other the truth in the beginning, and it's just been kind of like festering. And that's the thing, like you have to have like that open communication during those times, and you have to be mature.
But I think there's a lot of ideas that I've come up with, or a lot of investments that I've wanted to make, right? Yeah. Financial investments in whatever software, you know, different marketing ideas that I think you've told me after the fact that you were never on board with to begin with.
Wasn't.
And why didn't you tell me that?
I don't know. Part of me, because it made me second guess myself.
Sure.
And say like, well, like, I don't want to be the negative person in the room and be like, well, I don't know, Charles, like, this doesn't sound so good. Like, I don't know. I don't want to be that person. So that's the thing. So
you were afraid to tell me that this idea was terrible and that you didn't want to spend all this money?
No, but just like I second guess myself and say like, well, I trust your intuition and you're a very forward thinking person. And like, that's one thing I do admire about you, is that you are so forward thinking, and I really do like that about you, and to where like you do push me out of my comfort zone on that. So that's the reason why like I have gone with those ideas that like sometimes where I'm like, whoa, okay, that is like, okay, like we're gonna crack the code on this and we're gonna do it, you know, let's do this. But like, yeah, and in the end it has like kind of failed and doesn't always work out. What we projected didn't really, you know, come to fruition. But then you asked me like, well, what did you think about that? Like, well, yeah, I had my doubts in the beginning. I mean, that's what life is all about. We have to try. Like, I mean, if we don't try, then you're never gonna know if it worked or not.
Absolutely.
So like that's
you gotta try. Like, that's part of taking a risk.
Yeah, you have to take the risk, and like I'm willing to take that risk with you. Like it's fun because it's just kind of like, all right, let's try it.
And you know what? It's a little fun to tell me that I secretly knew that, you know, this was not terribly the idea.
I just don't know.
And just in case it didn't, and it did work out, but I want to tell you.
Didn't know.
But in all seriousness,
that's another thing, going back to the subject. Like I just didn't want to be honest with you and like give you like my negative feedback on that, because once again, I'm like, well, I don't know, but at the same time, this could be really cool. And what if it really did work? And so, yeah.
I think we've kind of gotten over that. We did that a lot early in business. And I think one of the ways that we got over it is that, you know, I take some extra time now because I've learned, and it does take me sometimes a few times to learn, right? Yeah. You can agree with that.
Yeah.
But once I've learned that, you know, it is better to engage with you, especially on these things, because we've had situations that haven't worked out. And again,
and like I think here in the past few years, because like being in business and married to you for the 15 years, 17 years, knowing you all together, I have been like, well, you know what, Charles, like I don't know if this is going to be the best solution here, and talking to you. So I have a little.
But you can't be afraid to do that.
No, I know. And
you can't be afraid to like really put that out.
It really does take maturity. It takes maturity. And then also at the same time, it takes the confidence in yourself to like be like, hey, like this is where I'm at, and this is like where I think this might lead to. So like, let's talk about it.
Yeah, because I think in a lot of ways, I value you as kind of the voice of reason. I mean, and I'll say that openly, like she's the voice of reason. And every couple has their strengths, right? Then there's going to be other elements that are going to kind of fill in the gaps. And that kind of really is important to identify. So if I'm go, go, go all the time, or you're go, go, go all the time, to have somebody to kind of be that break and balance each other out is what I've found as one of the biggest reasons why we've had success with this. Is because we've been able to balance each other out and trust each other. But holding back doesn't ever solve anything. And a lot of times I think when we've been stalled out, it's because one of us is holding back.
Yep. It's true. Yeah. And then like what we were talking about, that's where the disagreements come from. Like that's kind of like where it blows up in our face. And at the same time, like when we do like hold back, like that's like where you're kind of like just being like passive aggressive. And so because you just don't like want to upset the apple cart in the room at the moment. And because you might come to me like with an idea and I'm like, well, okay, yeah, I might have like a little bit of like a negative viewer on it and be a little bit passive.
Well, not like a negative viewer, but like little attitude.
Like, yeah, when I get some attitude about it too. Okay. Yeah. But I would say that you just have to be honest with one another in that situation and like be mature about it.
So I think one of the things that we've put in place that I think is something that's helped us immensely, and I'm suggesting that because it works for us, it might work for others, but there is once a week, we schedule a time to put it all out on the table, right? We have that conversation and it's understood that we're coming in and we're putting that, because if we didn't do that, right, a lot of these things, even if we get very comfortable at times to criticize one another or, be critical of an idea or vent what's frustrating, I think it's super helpful to have that opportunity. And I always preface it, right? We're coming in this. My favorite one is, hey, these thoughts are going to come out and they're going to be a little bit raw. They're not going to be refined, right? Whenever I say that,
Because I like when you say that because it's not concrete. It's not like where like, oh crap, he's made his decision. And like the bells are going off. Like, no, this is a raw thought. This is not concrete. And it's more of you're telling me I'm open to like whatever you might have to say about this. And it's still like a fluid thought that definitely is open to criticism. It's open to your thoughts. And I really do appreciate that when you say that.
No, and I think it's good for both of us because when I know that some of the thoughts that are coming out of your head and that you're putting on the table, because I know that our premise is based on, hey, this is going to be a meeting where we're going to sit down and we're going to lay it all out and we're going to be completely honest with one another on what we think or what the next step is. I mean, whatever that is. And I think that's very important for people in business to do in general. But I think even more so, especially if you're married and your spouse is your business partner, how do you really define that line? And if you don't define that line, then I don't think that's going to allow you to grow where you need to go. I mean, and again, I'm saying that very on a broad perspective, but think about it. If you're constantly going through that, and it also kind of rolls over to the marriage too, because people are now getting frustrated. You're just not being on point. But I think that's one of the most helpful things that we're able to do. And it sounds, it's not a simple thing.
No, it's not
a simple thing.
No, it's not.
And it's taken a lot of practice. It's taken a lot of effort.
We have not been perfect at it at all. No, I think that we've gone through business coaches that have helped us. We've gone through counseling. We've worked at this like a lot. And I think that's like one thing that has helped us and equipped us and gave us tools to be able to be where we're at today because of the fact that we did put effort into it. And that's like what you really have to do. You have to put effort into these scenarios where you might be, a little, afraid to be telling your spouse or your business partner some, truthful, honest criticism. But at the same time, it's like when you do those things, when you actually like invest time into yourself and you invest time into why you think the way you think, then you're able then to convey that back to your spouse at a more like loving way and in a more like in a way that is going to be perceived in a different situation. Whereas if like you were just like coming at them, in a way that could make them feel defensive.
Well, there's going to be a lot of that balancing and you have to invest time into, anything that you do. So why would this be any different? And I think a lot of times people take it for granted because, hey, we're married, everything is good from a standpoint of, we get each other. But I would say that my argument to this is that it's not. I think it makes it even more hard to function. And sometimes, there's a lot of upside of being married and in business together. There's a lot of upside.
Yes.
But in order for that to continue, you got to understand what the downside is. And if the downside is that you can't effectively just be honest, because yes, you are married, but you're also business partners. So there is a responsibility, right, to both. And finding that balance is what we're talking about. And I think it starts with truth.
Yes,
I
starts
think
with the truth.
And then it starts with, being able to put yourself in that position where if this works for you, right, get yourself a meeting. It's put all the cards on the table. Everybody has an understanding that this is what this meeting is. Whatever those catchphrases are, mine is, hey, these are raw thoughts. I'm just letting you know right off the bat. Some of it's going to come out. Don't react.
Don't freak out.
Right? Don't freak out.
Don't freak out.
Don't get upset. But it also, I will have to say, has been some of the best ideas that we have had is from these conversations and these meetings, because we were able to take the guard down and all of that other stuff and be able to just be focused on growth of the business and making sure.
If you guys, if you have, like, that's one thing that you and I have really come and agree on, is that if we're strong together, our marriage is going to be strong. If we're strong individually, first of all, in who we are, and what the Lord has made us to be, and then at the same time grow together as, strong couple, then it just spills over into every other aspect of our life, which is our family and our children and our business and our friends and our church. And if we have that strong foundation together, that we know that there's nothing holding us back of being honest with one another, like, that's only going to make everything stronger in the end, and it makes us more successful in all of those areas above.
Well, I couldn't say that any better. So you said that really well.
Thank you.
So if you find this episode helpful, share it. Share it to someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe. If you want to see more, you can find us on YouTube at HeyCharles Biz, and we are HeyCharles77 on Instagram and TikTok. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys.